the service.
For those who, may not have been here for chapters 1 and 2, a quick recap. J Piglet is the acronym for the words of the words of meaning, our values: justice, pluralism, interdependence, generosity, gratitude, love, equity, and transformation. So in chapter 1, Jay, the sweet little piglet, was roaming the meadows and got bumped in the rear by Kay the kangaroo and fell forward onto their snout, smushing some beautiful flowers, and they decided, I want justice. Justice for my rear, justice for the flowers. So Jay embarked on a journey they had never embarked on before. In chapter 2, pluralism, Jay arrived at a fork in the road and did not know which way to go, and met a friend, Henry Penelope Sunflower, as we may have met here before, who has lots of wisdom, and they began to chat. In chapter 2, Henry Penelope Sunflower gave Jay the gift of information. What Henry told Jay was that it doesn't matter which fork you take in the road, because I know something. They all meet up again at the end. Any way you choose to go is a good way to go. You'll get there in the end. And as a gift of gratitude, Jay sang their little song for Henry, and the conversation continued. "Excuse me, dear friend," said Jay to Henry Penelope Sunflower. "Can I ask about something you said?" "Of course," exclaimed HPS, which is Henry Penelope Sunflower. Jay went on. "Last time we talked, you told me that my song itself was a gift to you, and you took it with such grace and gratitude. But I have a question about gifts and receiving. I was told that taking from others is rude. If someone offers you something, they're probably just being polite, right? They don't really want to do the extra work. If you said yes, they would have more to do. You would be a burden. You would be adding more onto their life work. So isn't it the polite thing to do to refuse when people offer you gifts?" "My dear," sighed Henry Penelope Sunflower, "what a sad way to be. How can one give gifts if nobody receives? And isn't that where most of joy can be found? In giving and sharing and spreading around." "But what if I need too much?" asked Jay. "What if I'm too much and I scare them away?" "You cannot keep people, no more than air, but you must keep breathing, let people be there. If they go away, then away they must, and it means very little of how you are loved. But if you relax to your authenticity, people will come and stay, no matter the breeze." Jay thought, so all I must do is approach and be kind, and listen and keep their needs in mind, and then they will give me whatever I need? "No," said Henry Penelope Sunflower. "Then they will give you what they can share. Sometimes it's little, sometimes it's just air. Sometimes it's a mountain and you all can feast. But we can always give and we will always need." Jay thought on the predicament of not knowing whether people would stay or go, whether they would be there forever or leave them in the cold. "It sounds rather painful to love and to lose. If I'm independent, can I feel as I choose?" Henry asked, "What does independence look like to you? Walking alone and huddling through? Are you choosing that feeling of going alone? Or are you avoiding the pain that must be when you let others into your home? All of us need to eat, love, and breathe. Be mindful of choosing a not that decision. The universe only hears yes, and it listens. If you aim your arrows at where you don't want to be, losing a friend or skinning your knee, you'll find yourself there, having walked there with your feet. Do we have enough if we share what we have, or will we have less? Will the pie have been halved? Ironically, you'll find abundance in store. When you cook stone soup, the whole village eats more." Jay thought on all this, their little heads swirling with new concepts like ribbons and a washing machine. So many new ideas made them feel calmer, wiser, and helped solidify something inside them. I have roamed the meadows alone for a long time, not because I chose to, but because it's all I've ever known. I don't know any other little piglets, let alone ones I could rely on, and I don't really recognize the other creatures of the forest. I don't know their intent, and I've only learned how to find enough for myself, never to share. How do I know who to trust, who is fair? Henry Penelope Sunflower gazed into Jay the Piglet's eyes, all afluff with lashes and earnestness. How did you know to trust me? Asked Henry Penelope. Jay thought earnestly. Well, you came out with a smile. You announced yourself, which made me feel safe. You seemed to notice my feelings right away, and then you helped me with something I needed. You gave me the gift of knowledge. Then you accepted my thanks and my song. We sang the day together. How could someone like that choose to hurt me? You are right about one thing, my dear piglet friend. I would not choose to hurt you. The very good news is most life on Earth will never choose to hurt you. And even if it does, it's either an accident or an attempt to fill their own needs. We will all accidentally hurt each other. It's part of the contract. The best way we can navigate is by paying attention to each other's needs, including our own. Then you know what you can share. Then you know of what to be aware. You are safe in this world, even when you are not. I never knew how it felt to live in fear until Kay the Kanga bumped me in the rear. I don't know when it will happen again. I felt betrayed and unminded by a dear friend. I'm such a small thing, and the flowers are smaller still. If I don't try to talk to Kay, then who will? So let us see, thought Jay aloud. My independence used to make me proud. The less that I needed, it seemed, the more I must care. The less that I asked for, it seemed like more would be there. If I am a burden, then removing is care. But now you are saying to accept is to give, which means that accepting doubles the gift. Your acceptance makes a giver out of me. You receiving my gift with gratitude and humility doubles our wealth. We must start to see the web between us, Jay felt. The individual boxes we were placed in only let us keep the ledgers of our own homes. We are poor alone, but we are wealthy together. Jay lifted their chin, determined to give a gift to the first people they saw on their path. One last thing, posed Jay. Yes, said Henry Penelope Sunflower. If I am meant to navigate the world of people by their needs and mine, and give gifts that help their needs, you called my song a gift. Does that mean that to sing with others is a need? Henry Penelope Sunflower smiled, their big frog lips wide. When we walk in tune, life itself is a song. Would you say that to live is a need? I need to sing with all life like I need life itself. At times, my song is sitting still. At times, my song is croaking. At times, my song is the splash of water as I leap. All we can do is be mindful of our own tune and do our best to harmonize with the world around us. Jay, you will do just fine on the road. Carry on with kindness and love and live with others interdependently. Jay said, "This all makes sense," and chuckled to themselves. I think I'm ready to move forward, but gosh, I feel so vulnerable all of a sudden. Henry Penelope Sunflower smiled warmly. Good, they said. Vulnerability is where all your connection happens. Vulnerability is where all love happens. And vulnerability is where your true, authentic self happens. If you truly seek to make amends with Kay the Kangaroo, and if you truly wish to walk this road with the world as your friend, vulnerability is exactly the place to start. Jay bowed a little piglet bow to Henry Penelope Sunflower, thanking them again for their wisdom, their company, and their time. And Henry said, "Before we leave, could we sing together one last time?" If you remember, sing along. I'll sing it through twice, so if you remember, you can do it the second time. Jay the piglet sang, "How do I know where to walk on the road? Walking down pathways that I've never known. Just keep
Warren Buffett, the investor, philanthropist, and chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, is known as the Oracle of Omaha. He's far from perfect, but he's a pretty decent guy, which is kind of rare among people who have more than $100 billion in personal wealth. He's famous for saying, in the business world, the rearview mirror is always clearer than the windshield. In other words, hindsight is 20/20. On Wednesday, I returned from California, where I had a lot of time to reflect on that thought. And I'm not so sure I agree with it. We landed almost 2 weeks ago in the conservative farming region of the Central Valley where we used to live. And immediately we took our daughter of the heart and her new baby out to lunch and did a quick little tour of the town. We drove by the coffee shop that we bike to every morning, the place where we bought our old VW convertible, the place we got our hens the day before 7-year-old Gabby came into our life and changed it forever, the path where I taught her to ride a bike, the park where we spent Saturday mornings, and the frozen yogurt joint that she really loved, the one with the funny name. We were so filled with warm fuzzies that we forgot the stuff that makes most residents of that place hate it. The heat, the isolation, and a social quality that they usually call backwardness. We found ourselves longing to return. Not now, but someday, 10 years from now or more, when we retire and can really settle into the role of grandparents. Then on Monday, when we would have been home had our flight not been canceled, while you all were dealing with being bombarded by snow, Joe and I enjoyed the one lovely sunny day of our trip. We went into San Francisco and walked around the glorious, sunny, vibrant streets of the Castro district. I lived there for 14 years before Joe ever came onto the scene, having arrived at the age of 30. Everywhere we went, I had happy memories, just one after the other. I'm sure it all sounded like the gay equivalent of the prodigal son's life. Not wine, women, and song, but beer, boys, and hanging out. It was a social life of singing show tunes at a piano bar and reciting our favorite monologues from classic black and white Hollywood films. One of my favorite was from the movie of Human Bondage. And every time we were out, one friend would do a part of a Betty Davis monologue, and I still remember it. I only kissed you because you hounded me. You drove me crazy. You begged me. But I got the last laugh. Every time I used to kiss you, I would wipe my mouth. Wipe my mouth! I don't know, when you've had a few beers and you're in a piano bar in the Castro, it's really fun. We thought it was hilarious. We were young and stupid with few of the current worries and responsibilities we hold. We so idealized the wit and wisdom of past generations. We were so lacking in experience that we thought that was a comedy. We were in our halcyon days, and yet we were idealizing a past, a fictional past. I was making more money at that time than I will ever make again, living in a beautiful home in one of the most beautiful cities in the world. But somehow old Hollywood and the 1970s heyday of the gayest neighborhood on earth felt better. It felt more real somehow. It felt like something to emulate. I was glad that Abby and Archie weren't with us because I know I would have made it all sound like a big fun party. I wouldn't have wanted to give her the impression that I would go back or that she should idealize those times or those values. I wouldn't go back. Like Somerset Mom, I think one of the worst things we can do for young people is lie to them. Tell them idealized stories in which we are the heroes, stories in which times were tough, but we had the grit to make it. Because if there's one thing I know, it's that at least some people from every generation remember the past with a little too much glory and judge the youth of today with a little too much harshness. Not everyone from every generation, but enough that the problem with the kids today becomes a major narrative of every generation. It's kind of funny that Somerset Maugham was the same generation as my great-great-grandparents. The youth he was talking about were my great-grandparents. Just to put in perspective, the only one of my grandparents who was alive at the time that Human Bondage was written, he was still in diapers. That's the youth that Somerset Maugham was talking about. The reality, I think we all know, is that every generation has its unique challenges, and every generation, for better or worse, learns a bit from the history or even the false narratives of past generations. So there's something about the nostalgia of old age that's different from the nostalgia of youth. The older folks lived it and have no interest in going back there. And for youth, it isn't a memory, it's a fabrication, an idealization based on a story that elders, the people who were there, had a hand in concocting. Historian and author Margaret Macmillan once wrote, "We can learn from history, but we can also deceive ourselves when we selectively take evidence from the past to justify what we have already made up our minds to do." I recently came across a New York Times article called "Why Gen Z is Resurrecting the 1990s," which I found interesting given that was when I was living in the Castro district. In the article, social psychologist Dr. Clay Rutledge says that the power of nostalgia is that it provides comfort, inspiration, and even guidance. He goes on to say that even though nostalgia is all about looking in the rearview mirror, it's still a future-oriented endeavor for young people. Nostalgia is a way to use the past to drive toward the future on uncertain roads. Gen Z, Dr. Rutledge says, is longing for a simpler, slower time without constant monitoring and filtering of our lives through social media for public consumption and judgment. Gen Z, he says, wants to disconnect electronically, even though they feel like they can't. Perhaps because they can't. That's Dr. Rutledge's claim. I have to say, though, I tend to agree. He could be right about a big chunk of that generation. I see it out in the design world that I can't help but notice. After 15 years of gray and white mid-century modern minimalism being replaced by the pastels, colors, wood tones, and curvy furniture of the 90s, public spaces are full of young people in mullets and mom jeans. It feels like the 90s all over again, at least visually. And it still surprises me how often younger folks tell me that the appeal of being here in this sanctuary on Sunday is that they get to turn off their electronics, unplug, and be present. This space gives them a moment to think for themselves without fact-checking or checking in. The rituals are appealing because they're a connection to the past and a way to go down the path toward the future. The rituals are a way of grounding ourselves while reaching. You'd think everyone under 30 would be dying to be here, wouldn't you? Meanwhile, though, my news feed is jam-packed with clickbait articles about the reasons why young people can't be bothered to go to church anymore. And now all those reasons seem to boil down to one thing. While traditions may be appealing, the ideals and the beliefs, the stories we tell about ourselves are irrelevant to them. It makes me wonder what kind of messages we're sending out to the world. Are we somehow giving the impression that we idealize our past and ignore everything that makes us uncomfortable? Do we inadvertently tell those who are not among us that the way we did things 20, 50, 100 years ago or more is still relevant? even though we made big mistakes along the way? Do we send the message that we're not learning? Grace Lee Boggs, author of The Next American Revolution, Sustainable Activism for the 21st Century, writes, "History is not the past. History is the stories we tell about the past. How we tell these stories, triumphantly, self-critically, metaphysically, dialectically, has a lot to do with whether we cut short or advance our evolution as human beings. In other words, if we're nostalgic about our past, remembering and sharing only the stories in which we are the heroes and everything was great, we lose people. When we fabricate stories of past greatness, lacking in critical self-reflection, we don't grow, we don't evolve. As individuals, as organizations, as communities, we die out. So it's important to have practices that tell the whole story. You know, when my grandparents' generation, the folks who were young adults during World War II, are often called the greatest generation. They pretty universally answered the call to protect democracy in the world. They fought abroad or joined the war effort at home. And after the war, they built the infrastructures that we still rely on. Everything from roads, bridges, and schools to Social Security and NATO. They taxed themselves heavily. During the war, the richest Americans paid 94% income tax. Isn't that astonishing? And in the early 1960s, the richest were still paying up to 90% to pay for all that infrastructure that was getting built. And people of that generation gave generously in their private lives. You know, when I started in ministry 20 years ago, congregants of that generation, and there were still a lot of them alive, told me stories of putting their children and their grandchildren through college. They told me about paying off their modest homes, retiring, and then remortgaging those homes so that they could give to the capital campaign of the congregation. Things like building a new RE wing. They actually did that. They weren't making themselves out to be heroes. I saw the records. You'd often tell stories in which they were simultaneously heroic and casually racist. And they'd say things like, well, times were different then. So the stories often had an effect on younger folks that I don't think they ever expected. Younger folks would either judge them harshly for the harm they did and couldn't acknowledge, or lift them up as examples of greatness that couldn't possibly be replicated today in a world that is so much more complex and so much more expensive. It's made many of us feel like that kind of commitment and generosity is impossible in our times, or that triumphalism is a thing of the past. Maybe both things are true. Maybe both things are not true. Maybe it is still possible to give super generously, and maybe triumphalism is still alive and well. Ultimately, I think I have to disagree with Warren Buffett, at least in the context of congregational life. I don't think the rearview mirror is any clearer than the windshield. In the past, present, and future, the metaphorical roads and pews are full of people all along the spectrum. Casually cruel and unfailingly kind, stingy and generous, boastful and modest, quiet and loud, all of it. We are all of those things. And all of this is right in front of us, ahead of us, behind us, within us. Maybe the trick is seeing it all for what it is, honestly, here and now, without spending too much time looking back or ahead, but just being present. In our Roots and Wings conversation a couple weeks ago, one thing was clear. If we want to address the complexity of our fast-changing times, it's going to take hard work and commitment from everybody, that legendary commitment of the greatest generation. We're going to have to look around and understand our past clearly if we're going to have a way forward well into the future. So I want to end with the last paragraph of a letter from Reverend Robin Tanner, chair of the board of the UU Ministers Association, from a letter this week to colleagues. She wrote, "I believe that revisiting our history, retelling the stories and remembering who we were is vital to who we may yet become. I'm grateful for who you are, humbled by much of who we were, and committed to who we are becoming. May it be so." So accept